The video reportage in general and vlogging in particular are powerful devices to tell stories that captivate your friends, family, followers and potential customers alike. But professional results require professional equipment, and this is what this video is all about. My name is Thomas Eisl. I'm a professional photographer from Vienna, Austria. In this video, I'm gonna share my video reportage / vlogging setup with you so that you can build a capable and fun to use vlogging setup that suits your needs. Especially the latter, building a fun setup is important because when you are on vacation and want to document the trip using video, well, then you don't want to worry about the setup all the time and how to use it and where to put it. It just has to work and integrate very well in your day. And the same is true when you want to capture footage on set, because you need the footage, of course, for Instagram reels, for adverts and so on and so forth. But you also have to focus on the task at hand, and that is getting the shot for the client and for the project. So there is a lot to talk about, and as this video is about vlogging, I'm gonna record the next segment walking through beautiful Vienna. Let's go. The centerpiece of every vlogging setup is of course the camera. I'm using OM-1 series cameras exclusively for my video reportage and vlogging work, and there are a couple of reasons for that. First and foremost, the image quality. The OM system OM-1 Mark I and Mark II are capable of recording the full dynamic range the sensor is able to capture, both in 8-bit and 10-bit footage internally, using the fantastic OM Log 400 profile. Not only do I get a file that has incredible dynamic range, but also one that is very easy to grade. And flexibility is key when vlogging under difficult lighting circumstances, and that is usually what's the case, right? Light is changing, scenery is changing, so having a flexible file is really convenient. The other thing that I really appreciate about OM-1 series cameras is the fact that they are capable of capturing high fidelity audio all in camera. I don't need an external recorder. Just to give you a few technical specs here, I'm talking about 96 kilohertz, and well, it's just good enough to plug and play a microphone into the camera and record audio right there without an external recorder, and that means one thing less to put in my camera bag. Besides video quality and audio quality, there are of course other parameters that either make or break a camera for vlogging, and those are, in my opinion, autofocus performance, image stabilization and battery life. So let's talk about those. The OM system OM-1 Mark I and Mark II, well, they both have what is rightly known as industry-leading autofocus performance. If configured correctly, they are practically infallible, both in stills and video. There is absolutely no issue there, quite the contrary, you cannot really get any better than that. The second aspect is of course image stabilization performance. Well, especially for video, if you do not want to whip out the tripod every single time, it is just great to have excellent image stabilization. And also for these walk and talk videos like I'm shooting right now, well, you want the footage to be as stable as possible. So in stills mode you get around 8.5 EV of image stabilization, and in video, well, it is equally fantastic. So really stable footage without paying too much attention to overall camera stability. I mean, right now I'm holding the camera with one hand. It's wobbling around quite a bit, and nonetheless the footage is super stable. Talking about the last performance parameter, battery life. One BLX1 high performance battery gets you about 90 minutes of recording time. Depending on weather conditions, that can be a bit longer or a bit shorter, but it is approximately around 90 minutes, and that is a lot. If you are not vlogging too extensively and you get the takes the first time you press record, well, then you can practically log a full day with one battery, and that is excellent. Before I move on and talk about my lens recommendations for vlogging, I'd like to mention a few other aspects that are really important when getting a vlogging camera. Size and weight, of course, because usually you want to carry a regular camera and the vlogging camera, especially if you want to document your photographic process, right? You want your stills camera around your neck and then you want the vlogging camera. Well, that's one thing why I really like the OM-1, because, well, when traveling, I bring just two OM-1s, one for still and one for video. There is, by the way, a video of my recent trip to Budapest on my channel. I'm gonna link it up there and down below, so you can watch that afterwards. I did exactly that. I vlogged with an OM-1 and I photographed with a second OM-1. So that's size and weight.
Yeah.
Apart from size and weight... Hi! Yeah. Well, that's a great thing about vlogging, right? You can always get in touch with people around you because, well, the camera is just like a people magnet. You're gonna see that in the Budapest video as well. Two more things when talking about the camera. The OM-1 is also fully weather sealed, and you might notice that it is starting to rain here. Well, I don't mind. The camera is weather sealed, the lens is weather sealed. I can just continue recording and I don't have to waste a single thought about the weather conditions. So having a weather sealed camera is also great. And last but not least, I'd like to mention a very important feature that makes the OM-1 series cameras so fantastic for vlogging, and that is the touch control interface. I can change all camera settings by simply tapping the flipped out screen here and, well, continue shooting. That's just amazing, and, well, it's really, really useful. For example, right now you can see that I'm overexposing my face. I'm in manual. I didn't really see that, so I'm gonna touch the screen really quick and I'm gonna close the aperture to f4, and, well, now I'm good to go again. So really the touch controls are fantastic because you can just change everything without having to bring down your camera, which is super annoying. So that's also one great thing. In any case, enough about the camera. Let's talk about lenses next. Getting a perfect vlogging lens is super easy, right? It just has to be wide enough and that's it. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. There is actually a whole catalog of criteria that the vlogging lens has to fulfill to meet professional requirements. Let's look at it from an optical perspective. You want the lens to be able to image an angle of view of somewhere around 94 to 100 degrees. That ensures that when you're shooting these talking head videos, that you have enough background in the shot as well, and that there is enough room for the digital image stabilization to either work in camera or in post-production. On the other hand, you want the lens to be able to capture tighter shots as well, because of course you want to get a detail here and there, you want to capture some B-roll, and you don't want to change lenses all the time. But that is not all. A vlogging lens has to be fast enough to work under low light conditions, it has to be quite flare resistant, and it has to be sufficiently sharp. Sharpness is not really the main criteria when it comes to a vlogging lens, unless you want to image every single wrinkle and pore of your skin. Well, I don't really want to do that. But jokes aside, actually vlogging is an optically demanding task. On the other hand, you don't want the vlogging lens to be enormous. in size and weight, because of course you have to carry it around, and it absolutely makes no sense to have a compact camera like the OM-1 and then mount a humongous professional grade lens on there just to get the shot. So not quite easy. After all these years, I've basically found my two ideal vlogging lenses. The one lens is currently on my camera and I used it to record all the previous segments, and that is the Panasonic Leica DG Samilux 9mm f1.7. So 9mm gives me an angle of view of roughly 100 degrees, so this box is checked. On the other hand, it is a bit too wide for these scenic shots. The good thing is that the OM system OM-1 Mark I and OM system OM-1 Mark II both have a built-in digital teleconverter for video, which applies a crop factor of 1.4 to the footage, but delivers excellent image quality compared to cropping just in post-production. And the reason for that is simple: the camera still has the full video signal to work with, so the footage with the digital teleconverter applied is really good. In my recent trip to Budapest, where I vlogged a lot with this setup, so the OM-1 and the 9mm, I used the digital teleconverter quite a bit, and well, no one could tell when looking at the footage afterwards. So that is that. Also, with an aperture of f1.7, this lens is perfect for any low light shooting. Always keep in mind that for video you really do not need that much light, because you are usually capturing footage with a shutter speed of 1/60th of a second, while in stills photography you sometimes need faster shutter speeds to really freeze the motion, right? In any case, with f1.7 you are basically set to shoot under all circumstances. Last but not least, the 9mm f1.7 is also weather sealed, so it's super convenient, especially when you are traveling to the jungle, right? When you encounter a rain shower in Vienna like I did just a minute ago, well, then you just continue shooting and you don't have to worry about a thing. Nonetheless, I said I have two favorite vlogging lenses, and the other vlogging lens is far more versatile and, well, about the same size and weight, and that is the M-Suico 9 to 18mm f4 to f5.6 version 2. So this ultra compact zoom lens is just perfect for vlogging. On the wide end I get my 9mm I need for talking headshots, and on the long end, well, I've got 18mm, which is roughly, well, 35mm on a 135 camera. So I'm basically set for both talking head and scenery shots. It is only an f4 to f5.6 lens, but really, as I said previously, you do not need so much light to get good footage. You only have to reach this magical 1/60th of a second barrier, and then you are good to go. And that is possible with an f4 lens under most circumstances. Well, only if it is very dim, then, well, I have to raise the ISO a bit, but with the OM-1 that's not a problem. I can shoot super high ISO with this camera as well and still get very usable footage. The only downside of the 9 to 18mm is that it is not weather sealed, so it doesn't really fall apart in the time a raindrop hits it, but I just have to be a little bit more careful, and I definitely do not want to use this lens in rain showers. Apart from that, it is a fantastic lens, and as an added bonus, it has a smaller filter thread of 52mm compared to the 55mm of the 9mm Leica DG Samilux, so filters are a bit cheaper for the 9 to 18mm, and as you're gonna see in the next segment, having a filter is a must when filming video. Now I've got the M-Suico 9 to 18mm on the OM-1 to really show you the flexibility of this lens. Quick side note, sorry for the shades, it's quite sunny right now, weather changes quickly, and of course I also wanted to look cool, at least for once. Well, in any case, back to the focal length range. Currently I'm filming at 9mm, so you get this nice talking head shot with a bit of scenery, but I can also zoom into 18mm, and what I can do, I can basically just zoom past my face and show you scenery, talk about it, like what you're seeing right now is the Wiener Stadtpark, by the way, and then go back in with the 9mm and continue shooting. That is really the magic of the M-Suico 9 to 18mm f4 to f5.6 Mark II. It is super versatile, super light, not very expensive. Well, it's just a great vlogging and video lens, especially if you are traveling. And look at the image quality. Isn't that fantastic? Even in harsh light, the lens performs flawlessly. The third element in my vlogging setup is just as important as the camera and the lens, and that is actually a neutral density filter. So why do you need it? Well, for video you want the shutter speed to be around 1/60th of a second. That gives you the perfect amount of motion blur in each and every frame. Right now I'm shooting video with the 9 to 18mm without a neutral density filter at f4. So I've got a shutter speed of 1/4000th of a second. This means that basically every frame has my face frozen in time, and then it jumps to the next frame at 30p. Well, that is actually not a very good look, as you can tell right now. It is jittery, it looks unnatural, it doesn't look cinematic, it doesn't look very professional. Of course, I could stop down the M-Suico 9 to 18mm a bit, but I really don't want to do that, and there are a couple of reasons for that. First and foremost, even when stopping the lens down, there would still be too much light reaching the sensor, and I would still need a very fast shutter speed, so it doesn't really solve the problem. Quite the contrary, it creates a couple of problems. First and foremost, stopping down the lens destroys its character. I'm gonna get rid of all the background blur and everything's just gonna be in focus, and that's really not the look I want for my vlogs and my video reportage. And the second aspect is that at a certain point, stopping down the lens will introduce a noticeable loss of resolution. In video it is not that prominent because, well, you are usually not magnifying the thing quite as drastically as you do a still photograph, but nonetheless you're gonna see it at some point. So really stopping down the lens is not an option when shooting video. Instead, as I already said, the solution is putting a neutral density filter on the lens. So here is the thing. Neutral density filters are usually screw-in, and that is annoying. Why? Because you cannot be 100% sure which one of your neutral density filters you need for the current situation. So you're gonna find yourself screwing and unscrewing the neutral density filter until you have it. And that goes against the principle I mentioned in the introduction, and that is building a vlogging kit that is both capable and fun to use. That's why I personally settled for a magnetic filter kit by K&F Concept. Hello and welcome to the studio. In this cutaway shot, I'm gonna show you my K&F Concept ND filter kit, which I use for my video work practically all the time. Let's go. This filter kit consists of 3 ND filters. An ND8 filter, which reduces the light gathering by 3 stops. An ND64 filter, which reduces the light gathering by 8 stops. And last but not least, an ND1000 filter, which reduces the light gathering by full 10 stops. Additionally to these 3 filters, there is also a so-called graduated ND filter, which is right here. This is a so-called soft graduated ND filter with a strength of 8. This means that it reduces the light gathering in the top area of the frame by 3 stops, which quickly decreases towards the mid frame, and there is no reduction of light gathering in the bottom half. So it is actually ideal to darken the sky in your shot. I attach these 4 filters to the lens via the K&F Concept magnetic adapter ring, which is also part of the kit. Let me demonstrate how these magnetic filters work. It is actually pretty easy. This magnetic filter kit allows all the ND filters to be stacked on top of each other. So it is not just the magnetic filtering that allows to attach the filters on it, but you can also stack the filters on top of each other, which is not only convenient for transport, but also for getting different ND filter strengths by combining various filters. But before I cut back to the main scene, I'd like to talk a little bit about filter size, because when purchasing a filter kit, you really want to get the right filter size. I personally went for 62 millimeters. Why? Well, because my OM system f1.2 Pro lenses have a filter diameter of 62 millimeters. But as you noticed, the lenses I use for vlogging, well, they are smaller. So how can I attach these filters to those smaller lenses? With step-down rings, of course, like these from K&F Concept. What I do is I just screw in this stack of step-down rings, and then I just go and screw in the magnetic filter ring, and with this stack on the lens I can use the bigger filters on the lenses with the smaller diameter. One thing that is very important to keep in mind is that there can be vignetting, especially with very wide angle lenses, so you really have to check that. If vignetting occurs, just slightly crop the frame. And to be very precise, vignetting is only an issue if you build very thick filter stacks and use a wide angle lens. So when you just use the magnetic filter ring and attach the filters like that, you do not get any vignetting thanks to the very thin frame design of these ND filters. Of course, if you have many different lenses and probably even different camera systems, you might want to go for the biggest filter size available, and that is 82 millimeters. But just for the size comparison, this is a K&F Concept 82 millimeter variable ND filter, and you can really see that the difference is actually quite significant. So for vlogging, you do not really want such a big filter on a very small lens. Although it is doable, I really recommend getting slightly smaller filters for your vlogging setup, which match those small lenses better. Now, back to the vlog. I'm just gonna show you a quick demo here, because right now I'm moving my hand right at 1/4000th of a second, and let me now put on the neutral density filter just like that. We are now down to 1/60th of a second, which gives me this nice and actually universal standard of what is usually referred as the cinematic look in terms of motion blur per frame. Let me show you that. Now my hand movement looks way less awkward, and I've basically gotten rid of all problems regarding shutter speed. So you really need a neutral density filter kit for your video setup. A quick remark regarding the usage of a graduated ND filter. At first I was quite surprised that K&F included a graduated ND filter in this magnetic filter kit. I thought it's not going to be very useful for video because it's just going to cut my frame in half in terms of neutral density, and I'm gonna get a bright part there and the dark part up there, and well, I thought it's just a bit useless to have, but I was proven completely wrong, because actually it is quite awesome to have that, especially if you want to shoot the opener shot, maybe the landscape, maybe the cityscape on video. Well, with a graduated ND filter you can do that without overexposing the sky. Now that we've talked about the cool stuff, meaning cameras, lenses, filters, it's time to switch over to the boring stuff. Well, it's not really boring, it is actually necessary stuff, and I'm talking about peripherals that allow you to handle the camera while filming video reportage, while filming vlogs. So let's start with the absolute basic necessity for every filmmaker, and that is a camera cage. There is an excellent camera cage made by SmallRig that is on my OM system, OM-1, that I use for filming all the time. It gives me extra hard points that I need to mount a microphone, to get LEDs on there. It is just an absolute must in my opinion. As an added bonus, I can put the second tripod adapter plate on there so I can switch quickly between horizontal and vertical orientation. That is super useful when shooting for social media. As a side note and a bonus tip, if you are working with an OM-1 and you might want to use the footage on social media as well, so meaning vertical video, you can just record in 4K and crop it out. The image quality in 4K is just super good with the OM-1. You can basically just crop whatever you need. But in any case, it might still be that you just want to get the footage in vertical orientation right away, and then a camera cage is the way to go. So having talked about the camera cage a lot now, we have to move on to peripherals that allow you to actually hold the camera. And there are 3 options I'd like to use in practice. Let's start with the biggest but also the most stable option, and that is just putting the camera on a tripod. I'm using a Manfrotto carbon fiber B3 travel tripod. It's the older version. It is super light, and well, with enough stamina you can just hold the camera with the tripod, basically like a selfie stick. The next best option to using a full tripod for vlogging is going for a mini tripod. Again, I'm using a Manfrotto mini tripod there. It's a modular thing. I'm gonna show it to you in the cutaway right now. The recipe for the ideal Manfrotto mini vlogging tripod requires 3 ingredients. Ingredient number 1 is the Manfrotto 209. This is actually the base for a tabletop tripod. You can use this tripod like this, with the legs not fully folded out because they have a significant amount of friction, but you can also fully spread these legs and then you get a very stable platform. The size of the screw on top is 3/8 inch, so it is a standard size where you can directly mount tripod heads but also other accessories. The second ingredient is this extension rod, which is usually sold together with the Manfrotto 209. It is a metal tube with a female 3/8 inch, so it screws right in there, and it serves of course as our vlogging stick. On top of it there is another 3/8 inch screw, very handy. The last ingredient is of course a proper tripod head, and for this purpose I use the Manfrotto MH490BH. This tripod head is one of the smallest tripod heads offered by Manfrotto, and it comes with the universal 200 PL adapter plate, which I use for practically all my cameras. I've only got one tripod which doesn't use this one, and that is the one for my large format film camera, but for every other camera I use this 200 PL system, so it is super convenient because when I have a 200 PL plate on my OM-1, I can just put it onto this adapter plate, and I much prefer it to screw in ball heads. The locking mechanism is ideal, so we can position the camera at an angle, and when combining this head with the extension rod and the spider legs, then we get a nice long vlogging stick that can be extended even further. Additionally, this little setup doubles as a macro tripod or a tabletop tripod, because you can of course put the tripod head on the spider legs alone, like that. And that of course gives you the possibility to shoot with the camera on the table, and that is of course even more stable than trying to handle it with the extension rod. So overall a very versatile, high quality setup. It is just ideal. Last but definitely not least is option number 3, and that is simply attaching a camera handle to the small rig cage. And that is an option I like a lot. It allows you to just put your camera in the camera bag and grab it really quick to start vlogging right away. The only downside is that you have to vlog like this, so you just have to vlog with your arms stretched out like this, so your arms are gonna be in the frame all the time, well, at least one. And the disadvantage with that is of course that it requires some stamina and certain arm length to get the shot. Nonetheless, I've used this method of vlogging and video reportage filming on my Budapest trip quite a bit because, well, it is just so convenient to be able to grab the camera and start shooting right away without having to mount the camera on the tripod. So that is really an option that you should check out as well, especially if you are, well, in a hurry. Additional bonus here, with the camera handle you have an excellent grip on your OM-1, and you can use this setup to get smooth panning shots. You can get smooth establishing shots, and well, you can just really get professional looking footage without the tripod by just using the handle and the excellent image stabilizer. So it is a very viable option, and I encourage you to try that, especially if you've got long arms and you want a little arms and shoulders workout when filming. You for sure noticed that the leaves in the background and the trees are moving quite a bit. Why? It is super windy, and that leads me to another very important aspect when it comes to videography. Just as important as the image is the sound, and you can only record good sound with an adequate microphone. Also, the city is of course noisy, and I'm now recording deliberately at a very noisy spot. On my right hand side there is a busy street, right? And here on my left hand side there is some sort of student party going on. And that is actually a pretty typical vlogging situation. You just pick up your camera, start vlogging, and there is lots of noise in the area. So the good news is that even when you're working with the OM system, OM-1, bare bones, you get pretty good audio, as the built-in microphones of this camera are very good. OM system is well known for high-end recording equipment, and well, that really shows when it comes to the built-in microphones of the OM-1. Be that as it may, having a dedicated microphone is of course even better. And what I recommend is getting a directional shotgun microphone. I am using the Rode VideoMic Go 2. When working with the Rode VideoMic 2, I basically use a furry wind shield all the time, so it is also known as a dead cat. It just cuts out all the wind noises that usually get caught in the microphone's openings, so that is really good. And that is also probably the main advantage over the built-in microphones here, because, well, the built-in microphones, they are basically beneath two holes on the camera's sides, so when wind catches in there, you just get these super annoying wind noises. I'm gonna unplug the Rode VideoMic 2 really quick, and well, immediately I'd say you can hear the wind noise. Let's get this one back in there. And now, well, the difference should be noticeable. So even with good microphones, getting a better microphone is always worth the investment. No one's gonna listen to your video log when the audio is bad. Another option I'd like to mention is a lav mic. So the great thing about these little clip-on mics is that the audio quality is even better, because the rule of thumb is get the mic as close as possible to the speaker for the best possible quality. I also used various Rode lav mics. I still use them, but they have one disadvantage. You really have to like clip and unclip them all the time, and then in post-production you have to sync up two audio tracks, so the audio track of the camera and the audio track of the lav mic. Of course, there are also wireless options that transmit the audio directly to the camera, but I'm not a huge fan of those. The connection gets interrupted, you don't notice that well, and then you're basically recording and end up with unusable footage. So for me, it is always wired lav mics, and those are just a bit more cumbersome to use, especially if you're working all by yourself and if you really want to do additional things besides vlogging. So my run and gun option there is really the Rode Video Mic Go 2. It's an excellent microphone, well worth the money. Once again, it started to rain, so I had to flee under the protective umbrella of one of the many riverside bars here at the Viennese Danube Channel. Could be worse, definitely. Especially as by coincidence, those are the perfect conditions to demo the last piece of equipment I recommend getting for every vlogging setup. And that is a compact, high quality, high power LED light, like this one from K&F Concept that I use for my vlogging and video reportage work. The point of using such a light is not that you use it as the main light. You usually do not need that as a main light, and I'm gonna show you that right away because I'm recording this video at 1/60th of a second f6.3 at ISO 400, even though the sun is already very low and I'm sitting under this umbrella. So really, for video, you do not really need that much light, especially if you are a photographer and used to needing a lot of light there. Well, for videography, you do not really need that. So it's not really to light the shot, but to use this light as a fill light. Why do you want to do that? Well, it is all about quality of light. Having a little fill light there, especially one with a high CRI number, improves the quality of light, the color rendition, and it also acts as a beauty light. What I really appreciate about this light is that it is a bicolor light. So I can set the color temperature of the light to match the ambient light, or actually to be a different color temperature for a little foreground, background, white balance shift there. But in this case, I'm gonna use it to actually just fill in my face a little bit. And here is how to do that in a professional way. First and foremost, use your OM-1 to capture the white balance of the scene with something like that, a white balance target. This is a color checker passport, by the way. So I'm just gonna use the one touch white balance feature and I'm gonna get the white balance of this shot. I already did that and the result is actually 5800 Kelvin. The next thing I have to do is take my little fill light here, go to the CCT mode, which means correlated color temperature, and there I'm gonna set these 5800 Kelvin. Quick and easy. Next thing is I'm gonna turn this one up to 100% so it is nice and bright. And now I'm gonna mount it on the camera. So this is how the shot looks like lit with the K&F Concept LED. And you might have noticed the difference is very subtle, but filming is very often about these subtle differences. And to show you the difference, I'm gonna turn it off really quick. This is without the fill light. You can really see that it's been a long day, but when I turn the light on, well, that definitely helps to improve the overall look of my skin. It also helps to separate my face a little bit from the surroundings. So really, adding a tiny fill light there is just a great way to spice up your shot, to really improve the whole setup. And also if it gets really, really dark, well, then you can use this light as a main light as well. So for example, you are camping somewhere and you want to shoot a bit of a vlog inside of your tent, well, then you can of course light the whole scene with this K&F Concept LED light, especially if you're filming with a lens like the Panasonic Leica DG Samilux 1.7. Because of the bright aperture, the LED is more than powerful enough to light your face for the vlog. friends, I don't plan on leaving this chair anytime soon. I'm already enjoying my second Coke here, and the atmosphere, well, it is just perfect. I'm gonna enjoy the sundown here at the Danube channel, definitely. But before I end this video, I really want to emphasize one thing. If you plan on getting into video reportage and vlogging, get the right equipment. Don't buy into any stopgap solution. A typical stopgap solution is, for example, a screw-in ND filter. While it works for regular videography quite well, it is just a major annoyance if you are on the run and you just want to figure out the right ND filter for the given scene. Or another example is buying a cheap, low-quality LED light. The batteries don't last, the CRI is not there, it's just annoying. Also, don't cheap out on audio equipment. Having a great microphone on there, well, that's just a must. And you've probably noticed by now that I didn't say a single word about camera and lens, well, because of course you should get what really works. That is, in my opinion, the OM system OM-1 with one of those two lenses. At the end of the day, it all comes down to convenience and image quality, overall workflow quality. Because if one of these two aspects is not there, well, you won't use the equipment, you won't vlog, you won't create a single clip. And you definitely should do that, because video content is a powerful way to communicate with your customers, with your friends, with your followers, but also with yourself. By documenting your next holiday with video content, you can really add so much more than you can with just photography. There is more emotion, there is more in the moment, and you probably gonna enjoy watching these clips afterwards. Well, not probably, I almost promise that you will. At least that's the case for me. Thank you very much again for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel, but also consider becoming a channel member. The regular support helps me to create video content like this one and provide you with what is hopefully good advice for your daily creative practice. Also, follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. I hope to see you there. And until then, cheers and see you next time.